Hello, my fine friends. Welcome back to Destination Discourse. I'm host Stuart Butler, joined today with Adam Stoker. How are you?
I'm good. I wasn't ready. This is another new intro. I like it.
Ad-libbed on the fly, no prep. Like we like to not
Pretty
do
good.
on this show. I didn't prep, so whatever comes out
Yeah.
of my mouth hole at the time is what our audience ear holes hear. So that's how it works.
Well, speaking of preparation, can I ask you something?
Sure,
You don't know
going
where
off
this is
script.
going. I
No, I
like it.
don't. Mm.
No, I want to hear an update on your morning preparation on a daily
Oh.
basis. How's your miracle morning going?
It's great, man. I am 45 days in, I think. Uh
That's
clean
pretty
s-
good.
clean streak, no miss. No, I'm the flexibility of this program is what makes it really good for me. So those that don't remember, I talked right before Christmas about I'd started December 1st this new morning routine that it consists of stretching, exercise, breathing, nutrition, affirmations, devotion, like a whole bunch of prep for the day. And I've figured out where I can do it. Like a normal day, get up around 6 a.m., don't hit snooze, and I'm done and out the door by 8. So I can get everything done and ready for work by 8, and I can be on the way. Um, but I've found too, so it's like a 2 hour routine basically. But I've also found that if I need to do it in 30 minutes, I can. So I can do like this abridged version where I'm just doing like 10 minutes of high intensity exercise and 5 minutes of breathing and stuff like that. So it's really flexible, but I'm loving it, man. Like I feel better. At my age, you'll get there in a few years, but at my age, things
Someday.
tend to creak and ache. And when you stretch, man, a lot of that goes away. Like I historically had some like sore hip issues, and knock on wood, in the last, I'd say 3 weeks, I really haven't felt my hip. And so
Yeah.
it's game changing. If the audience does nothing other than stretching every morning, that's a game changer, man. Stretching at our age is super important, and I'm feeling like more strength in my core and stuff from the stretching. It's really good.
I
So,
like just the idea of feeling like you've accomplished something before you even log on for work.
yeah, oh, yeah,
You can have there's wins, there's losses, there's good days, there's bad days with work, right? But if
yeah,
you've accomplished something before you log on, you don't necessarily need work to go perfectly to to make you happy. You know what I mean?
yeah. Because once in a while, work doesn't go perfectly, right? As opposed to
Yeah.
like every day. Um, no, it's good. Like I'm really enjoying it. I don't see me not doing it. I've made one commitment in my head. Before I talked about how I make covenants with myself, like, and I don't break covenants. One of the ones I've set for this year is I have to do this at least 5 times a week, and I cannot skip back-to-back days. So if I have a day where I skip, or just for whatever reason forget or can't do it, um, I have to do it the next day. So those are my covenants. And so far, I've been every day. So but I've given myself a little bit of a cushioning just in case. And
Yeah.
just knowing that takes the pressure off it a little bit. It's fun.
I like you were talking about stretching. I actually am at the point where the aches and pains are here. And one of the things that's helped me is sauna. I don't know if you've tried going to the sauna, but
No, I haven't, but I've heard it's great. Like both heat exposure and cold exposure are good. I do
Mhm.
sometimes take cold showers, just that's really good for you to do as well. So
Yeah.
I guess people forgot they were tuning into a destination podcast and they started talking into a health and wellness podcast. But you want to jump into the topic?
Let's do it. Well, no, I
Actually, no, we
don't.
can't.
Not at all.
I'm off my game.
Not even
This
a
is what happens
little.
when you go off script. I forget like the most important segment in all of destination marketing.
It's
You
okay.
want to hit
It's
it?
okay. I got you.
All right, go for it. Snooze news, guys.
I've got to show you a video of my kids dancing to this yesterday. I took a video of them. They figured out, I think I said this before, if they hit the play button, it just plays because I've got it queued up since we
Yeah,
record 17 times a week. And that was meant to be a joke. Sorry. But they were in here dancing and singing to it yesterday, and I came in and took a video. I'll send it to you.
that's great. Yeah, I question your parenting, but that's great. I'd love to see it.
When they're
Um,
in timeout, I actually send them in here and just press play.
yeah, it's like a form of water torture. Um, all right. So today's Stu's news. So Steve Hill, who's the head of Las Vegas tourism, came out this week in a few different publications, just very bullish and optimistic about the Las Vegas tourism economy. You know, it's no secret that they've been down pretty significantly this year. I think the article said 7 or 8% over up through November or whatever it was. But you know, we've seen reports where it's substantially higher. And we've talked on the show about Las Vegas and their struggles, and also about the campaign they did with this deep discount for a limited time, the 5% or the 5 day sort of fire sale that they did on their product, and debated whether or not that was a good or a bad thing. And the jury's still out, right? We're not
Yep.
sure. I think on one side we could argue that it devalues the brand. On the other side, it because it was such a limited scale and it got a lot of attention, it may have been a masterstroke. I still probably lean that it was not what I would have done, but to see them coming out so optimistic and aggressive that there was going to be a rebound, that they feel like they're going to benefit from the World Cup, even though there's not a game in Vegas, that they just feel like people come to the World Cup and go to Vegas. I don't think that's necessarily the case, but maybe. And then obviously robust groups and meetings that they're planning for. Um, I was just a little surprised how gung ho this article was personally. You know, I think it's everyone I'm talking to is sort of cautiously optimistic. We don't know what the big, beautiful bill is going to do. Um, Gas prices are going down, which is usually not a good thing. Although on the surface you think, oh, people have more money, but usually that's a lag indicator of a weak economy. When gas prices go down, usually a reduced demand, right? So I think there's a lot of nuance. So I was really surprised, I'll be honest, to see Steve Hill come out this aggressive. Very risky, right? It's very risky at this point. But I don't know, Adam, you've read it. I don't know if you had any takeaways from this.
Well, what he's kind of put himself into a situation where if he came out and said, "Hey, we're way down after all the discounting and campaigns that they ran," I think he would put himself in an even tougher spot. So the way I would, and again, I'm not, this isn't meant to say that this is all disingenuous. I don't mean that. But if I was in his position and I had all these stakeholders, these gaming stakeholders that want to make sure that they don't have to worry about 2026, one of the things that I would say is like, look, we discounted things. We created these packages that were discounted in the second half of last year, and we were surprised that we were only down 5%. So this must
Hmm.
have worked in some way, shape, or form, right? So I think step
Hmm.
one is he's hedging a little bit to say the efforts that we did in the second half of last year worked, and we know that because we were only down 5%, even though it had been forecasted to be more. So I think that's one of the things that's going on. The thing that makes me nervous is the claims that he makes about increased visitation in
Hmm.
2026, because you can only kind of ride that wave for so long. So then what's the explanation if we're down in 2026, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I
You're gonna
also
have to
think you
create it
want a
along the way.
leader. Yeah, but you want a leader that is optimistic. There's no question about that. You want somebody that believes that we're going to be successful. Do you promise that? I don't know, but that's kind of what my interpretation of his comments was.
Yeah. Well, one of the things and it may be just the report I read, right? I don't know the full quotes. I don't know the format that he put this out, but I think I would have probably liked to have seen a little bit of hedging in terms of, okay, here's all the headwinds we have, you know. Now, despite this, here's why we're optimistic, you know. And so I don't know. I think I don't. I'd love for someone from Vegas to come on the show and
Yeah.
talk about that campaign and how it worked and what the strategy is. You know, Vegas is such a fascinating place right now because, you know, obviously there's still all the allure, and they're sort of doing some back to basics sort of campaigns, talking about the magic of the destination. But then you also hear this negative sentiment around things like the Formula One race. You know, even though it might have economic impact, there's a lot of people there disgruntled and stuff like that. So I don't know, it's just a
Yeah.
fascinating thing to study for the rest of us DMOs
Well,
right now.
and Vegas is also kind of a bellwether both in tourism and real estate. And so
Hmm.
seeing what happens in Vegas is usually an early indicator of what may happen in other places. And so that's part of the
Wait,
reason
so
we're
you're
always
saying what
watching
happens in
Vegas.
Vegas doesn't stay in Vegas? It actually goes
No, they
everywhere else?
abandoned that years ago.
what happens in Vegas influences everything else. You're right, and candidly, I mean, we might be perceived as taking shots at Vegas. We're not. I think there's not a person in this world wouldn't trade spots with Vegas tomorrow, right? I think they have so many assets to sell and such a phenomenal brand. So they're doing a great job. This is an interesting article, and it actually does give me a little hope. Like I wonder what they're seeing that leads to this optimism because we're seeing mixed bag, and I think we're cautiously optimistic, but I'm not going out there in front of media and saying it's going to be a banger year. So,
Well, and we watch what they're doing, right? And
yeah.
they're putting that out there, and I hope he achieves everything that he said he would.
Well, if he does, then it's good for everyone else, right?
Yep.
There's no question. So, all right, let's talk about. We haven't even teased what this episode is about yet.
No.
So, wow, the people are sitting there on tenterhooks and wondering what we're going to be talking about. Well, this
I'm
is
sorry.
another.
What's a Tinder hook?
I don't know the etymology of that word. Would you like to Google it?
Maybe another time, but I gotta say that is the first time I've heard the term Tinder hooks.
Is it tender or tenter? I don't even
You
know.
said it.
Now
I
I'm
don't
gonna
know.
have to hold on. Give me a second. Ten,
I mean, tender hooks, I'm picturing a bunch of chicken tenders hanging on hooks, but I'm imagining that's probably not.
For the second recording in a row, we're gonna be doing live stuff right here.
Googling.
Yeah.
And did you Google it or chat GPT it?
It is tenter hooks. I was right. It's not tender hooks.
Okay.
So yeah. Um, a
This
tenter
is
was a
great
large
audio.
wooden frame used to stretch the cloth after washing. Ah, okay, to prevent it from shrinking. So that's why we're on tenterhooks. There you go. You don't take it. This show
Thank
is
you.
nothing if it's not educational.
Yeah, that was super helpful. I get why the saying exists now.
You never done your laundry, have you, in your life? That's why.
I have.
Okay. Okay.
You know
We're
what?
just gonna
I
end it.
spent 2 years in Brazil and had to do it by hand,
Did you
actually.
have tenterhooks when you did it in a frame that you would stretch your clothes out on so they didn't shrink?
Nope, nope, we weren't that advanced
Yeah, okay,
out there.
fair enough. All right, we're so off the rails. All right, let's talk about this episode, shall we?
Let's do
Because
it.
everyone is still on tenterhooks. Um, don't call me out like that again. That's such a weird segue. I don't know. Well, maybe you should because it's entertaining to you.
It entertained me.
All right, we could just keep delaying and not tell anyone what this episode's about and see how long they stick, but probably not. All right,
Yeah, we'll
so
see. This is the drop off in the analytics right here at this moment.
you want to drag it out one more second? You want to
No,
keep?
we're good.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
All right. So we're talking about resolutions and predictions for the year. We've done a couple of episodes. We did my episode. We did your resolutions episode as well. And we've also solicited for some of our Desties what they're thinking about this year and what their predictions are. And so we had dozens and dozens of these that were submitted. And so I wish we could do all of them, but some of them weren't great. No, I'm just kidding. Some we just don't have time. So I was kidding. Don't give me that shocked face. It was a joke. They were all amazing because
I
they
loved
came from
all
our
of them.
Desties,
Yeah.
right? But we've sort of narrowed it down to seven or so of our favorites, and we're just going to go through those. So, not necessarily even our favorites, the ones we felt like are most relevant to our audience, and we
Yeah.
can chat about a little bit. So, we're already like 70 minutes into this episode, so we might
Let
have
me
to
just dive
breeze
into
through
the
some of
first
this.
one.
All right, jump for it. Go for it.
So Tim Peter, we've had him on the show before. We definitely plan on having him back because his episode was great. He gave us two predictions. And so the first one, he said, this one might be too obvious, but the C-suite is going to start demanding actual revenue or savings from their AI investments. I've heard no, he said, he didn't say that. He said, I've heard multiple C-level execs joke ruefully that AI is everywhere except the P&L. I think they'll demand to see that change in 2026.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. I think this is the time when everyone's beginning to say, is it just an email helper or are we actually making progress? Yeah, I agree with that one. No notes. And
Yep.
Tim Peter's one of the most tweetable people I've ever met. And he had a zinger there at the end of that one. So he's great.
Yeah, I got to say, my just response to this is that means it's incumbent upon everyone in any organization that's leveraging AI to demonstrate how it's appearing on the P&L, to
Yeah.
demonstrate how it's saving or making extra revenue. And so if you have, either demanded or requested AI investment, demonstrate the ROI this year. That's your job in
Hmm.
2026.
Yeah. I wonder a little bit if it's, if we go back to when computers came into the office or email came into the office, were these same debates happening then? I don't know. It was before my time, but were people being asked before everyone got an email address, were people being asked to justify the ROI on email? I don't know.
Computers, most definitely, yes, because the investment was high, right?
Yeah.
Email, I mean, it's low investment, low risk, right?
Yeah, but it was it was a shift in productivity and a shift in
Yeah,
process, and it was massive.
fair.
All right, he had two though, right?
Yeah. He basically said in his second one, it's a little bit long, so I want to pare it down. But he basically said that the browsing, shopping, buying funnel is not there yet in AI. And so that's going to be an issue because a lot of us in general marketers have promised that AI shopping is probably going to impact the buyer journey or the visitor journey. And
Mm-hmm.
that likely will not come to fruition as quickly as a lot of us have thought that it would, according to
Mm-hmm.
Tim.
Yeah, and I agree. I go back to the my prediction that I think the technology will be there, but the adoption may not be this year. Um, we saw Target just announced that they're going to have an online store embedded in ChatGPT, and I know there's already deals with Booking and Expedia on the travel side, so and others. So I think the technology will be there in 2026. Just I don't believe humans will be adopting that technology quite yet. The trust isn't there.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's probably pretty realistic that not only ChatGPT, but most LLMs, including Gemini and some of the other ones we've discussed on the show, will have that true capability by the end of the year. Adoption will probably be the issue, but he called out OpenAI's Code Red, which I don't know how many people are aware of that, but they released one version, and Sam Altman basically reached out to his team and said no more side quests. We need to
Hmm.
focus on our product and develop our product because it was a little bit behind of where it should have been. And I think some of those leadership changes are going to result in the technology getting there, but I think you're right. I think adoption will probably be the issue.
Yeah, I mean the question there is: does Sam Altman see shopping as part of the mission critical? Is it all about the algorithm? All about the actual intelligence of the application? And that
Can
was
I give
really
you my
was
opinion on that?
yeah.
I, if you don't figure out the shopping, the total addressable market, as far as possible revenue to generate, is a
Hmm.
fraction of what it could
100%.
be. And
Yeah.
so to participate in the transactions that could happen as a result of the searches, I can't see how that wouldn't be primary mission critical for every AI company.
But he also came out and said advertising is not a primary mission critical, right? And yet that's the other leg
Yeah.
of the stool for revenue. It's really it's subscription, it's commerce, and it's advertising, and probably the three line items that they're going to go after. But they got leapfrogged by Gemini, and I'd say they still have been leapfrogged, even though they fast tracked 5.2. There's still Gemini's ahead of them. So I don't know.
He
He may
also said it
forego
was going to
revenue.
be he also said it was going to be open source and nonprofit. So
So basically, anything he says is assume they're going to do the opposite.
well, I would definitely just take anything related to a lack of commerce or profit, especially as it relates to his intentions. I wouldn't necessarily trust anything that sounds altruistic.
That's fair. All right, next
Yeah.
one. What's up? Thanks, Tim.
So Emily Zertucci, we've had a couple episodes with Emily, and she said that destinations that outperform won't be the ones with the biggest campaigns. They'll be the ones that build strong destination knowledge layer of data, LLM governance, and content storytelling that AI assistants can trust and act on.
Yeah, what do you think about this one?
Um, I kind of feel like the comparison is not a binary comparison, right? It's not either the ones with the biggest campaigns or the ones that build out the LLM infrastructure. I actually feel like there is a very important difference that you and I have discussed not on air several times. There's a difference between being incredibly organized and being a great marketer. And one of my fears with marketers focusing so much on just building the destination knowledge layer, LLM governance, and content storytelling that AI assistants can
Mm.
act on, you need both. You need the creativity arm of your efforts. And so what I don't want to do is say that it's either be super organized or have amazing campaigns. You're going to have to find a really solid mix of both.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I think it is a balance. Creativity is always going to win, right? Because that's where novelty and attention is going to come from. I gotta tell you, I don't know if this is a coincidence or if I'm just reading too much into it. Like I've been watching a lot of the NFL and the college football recently, and so I'm actually seeing commercials for the first time in a while because usually I'm only watching streaming stuff and I don't really watch commercials a whole lot, and I'll skip them on YouTube. So I'm actually hearing a lot of more commercials than I typically would. There seems to be a lot that are following the what sounds like an AI formula. Like there's certain key phrases that you see. Everyone talks about M dashes, in AI report, but there's also other telltale DNA. Like one of them is it's not just this, it's that, right? That's a phrase that AI uses a lot. And there's a couple of others. A lot of the commercials, and I'm not saying like the majority, but I'm hearing at least 6 or 7 commercials that I've heard repeatedly that have that kind of phrasing in it that just
Yeah.
sounds like AI wrote it. And I'm like, is this where we're heading, where everything is just homogenous, you know, AI slop?
Let
Because
me ask you a philosophical question there, though.
yeah,
Is it that AI wrote it, or is it that they believe that enough consumers are reading that language frequently enough in the LLMs to feel like it's part of their zeitgeist?
maybe, maybe, I'd go a layer deeper, right? Does AI write that way because that's the most compelling way to write,
Yeah.
and because that's how which is feeding the beast, right? Was it the ads were written, the most effective ads were written that way, so AI emulates that so that now it's creating ads. I don't know, right? Chicken or egg, but I don't like it. I think it's very generic and I think it's very passe, right? It's not interesting, and
Hmm.
so I don't know. And maybe, we're tip of the spear in terms of adoption, so maybe we're hypersensitive to it, and maybe the average consumer doesn't care, and the message resonates. But
Yeah.
I hope we're not heading for some generic, you know, slop that everyone's doing the same thing.
Well, anytime every ad is saying the same thing, none of the ads will work. Like that's just, you have to think differently. You have to do something different in order to stand out. And so, regardless of whether or not it's the data says it's the right thing to do or anything like that, if that's the way advertising is headed, the people who do it completely differently are going to win.
Yeah, for sure. But then, yeah. So I think creativity is always going to be the
Yep.
most important piece, right? All right.
Next one.
Mm-hmm.
So this came from, and I know you do a lot of work with MMGY. Katie Briscoe from MMGY sent these two over to you. And I actually thought these were really interesting, more tactical predictions, which I thought was
Well,
really
and
cool.
she caveated with these aren't her predictions. This is the team's predictions. They come out with their I forget what they call it, their compass or something like that. That we had Katie on the episode before where she actually did that at Stu's News, like some of the updates from that last year. So we'll have to have Katie back on when they release that updated version.
Yeah.
But they boiled down a lot of predictions, and these were two that she sent over.
Well, these were both really interesting to me. So, number one is the middle class gap. The middle or consumer class now represents the majority. The travel industry has become so focused on the luxury market, but if we don't cater more to the growing global middle class in our marketing activity, we're going to leave serious money on the table.
Yeah. I like this one a lot. We did a whole episode on luxury and what is luxury, and sort of the thesis was that luxury is has the meaning has evolved a little bit to what's luxurious to one person may be a barrier to someone else. And so I do think there has been a fascination with, let's say, upscale travel um, in the industry, and it's clear with the K-shaped economy that we're dealing with right now that when she's saying middle class, I'm assuming she's sort of also referring to the folks that maybe don't have as much, right? And so we're seeing that's where the drop off is in travel. And some of that's means, but some of it is we should be talking to these people about value and how can they travel, even if they don't have the means that they think provides them the ability to travel. So how can we make that easier for them? How can we merchandise and provide the value in different ways? So I agree with this one. It's something that we're not neglecting at Visit Myrtle Beach, and I hope the industry doesn't. Although selfishly, if it does, it's good for us because we're going to definitely aim for that market.
Yeah, I mean, there's a there's a natural progression and accompanying inherent risk that every organization kind of goes through because the way to access more revenue for any organization in most cases is to go up market, right? To
Mhm.
try to get the customer that spends more money, that generates
Right.
more revenue, whether it's for the destination or an advertising agency. You see a lot of agencies that want to try to go up market. And the reality for most of those organizations is it's the same amount of work to acquire the customer, but for a whole lot more revenue. And that goes
Hmm.
for a destination marketing organization as well. The inherent risk that comes along with it is that if for some reason the up market that you went to dries up or has some sort of economic change or something like that, and you neglected the people that got you to where you were, they're going to feel betrayed or something like that in some way. And so
Hmm.
I think it's a great kind of, in my mind, cautionary reminder to not neglect that middle tier, whether it's the middle class consumer or middle tier B2B customer or whatever it is. If your organization is trying to go up market, don't abandon the people that got you there along the way.
Yeah. Yeah, and you got to fish where the fish are, right? If and look at volume. That she made a really important point that middle class is the largest consumer set, right? And they might not be individually as profitable, but on aggregate, you're going to be able to drive more economic impact.
Yep. Yep.
It's a great one.
The second one MMGY wrote was we're also talking about the anti-event traveler. As the industry looks to capitalize on the influx of travelers for events like the World Cup, what about the locals in these cities that might want to get out? And she says, think the 2024 Paris Olympics. And if you think about all the events that are going on this year, there's communities all over the United States, if we're talking about the United States, where big events are coming to town, and there's going to be residents who don't want to deal with the traffic or the increased, tourism
Hmm.
that's happening there. So, is anybody talking to them? I think that's a really interesting question that MMGY is posing here.
Yeah, it's fascinating. It's not something I never thought about, and I think it is a new opportunity. There's definitely, thinking about the origin of people and what motivates them to travel. We know that historically, the number one reason people travel is to visit family and friends, or at least it has been in recent years. But right up there is usually for a specific event, right? And so looking at the reciprocal of that, I don't know how much energy you'd have to put in to really identify opportunities, though. The challenge is what's a market where there's events that are scalable enough to have that kind of disruption. I think you could think of a handful, like Memorial Day in certain destinations, right? Like we have a massive bike week here, Memorial Weekend, and so people are motivated to travel because they got a long weekend and there's a lot of traffic, right? So that might be one. But Formula One for Las Vegas, like there's probably a lot of people want to get out of town while Formula One's on in Vegas, and so how many of those exist, and what is that target audience, and how specific and targeted can you get? Um, I think now is the time we can start exploring these kind of niche campaign things though, because
Hmm.
up until now, scaling and being agile enough to do it was really hard. But I think AI is going to allow us to get really granular with some of these kind of
Yeah.
concepts. So I like it.
Well, I mean, think about this. You could probably just put a prompt into one of the LLMs saying, what are the top 30 major markets who have an event coming to town that will likely be an inconvenience to
Yeah,
residents during the time of the event?
yeah,
And also map those to me. How far are those from Myrtle Beach, right?
yeah.
And then build custom messaging for each of those, and you probably will run a simple paid social media campaign
Hmm.
to get them to maybe want to come spend that time in Myrtle Beach.
Yeah, part of me is thinking now, like with the World Cup coming up, do we target those specifically with the anti-World Cup messaging with those destinations that will
Yeah.
drive market or direct flights?
Fan of real football? Come to Myrtle Beach. Clearly,
I
this
don't think
isn't
I'll run
relevant
that
to you.
campaign. That's offensive to me. But thank you, Katie and MMGY team. I think I like these tactical kind of ideas. I think that's great.
And I want to
Thank you for
acknowledge
sharing.
Jason Holick from Experience Kissimmee. He also submitted a very similar comment about the middle class, and I think he was hitting on kind of the same topic. So
Yeah, and
appreciate
that
him
whole
submitting as
K-shaped
well.
economy. Yeah. Thank you, Jason.
We have Brad Dean, friend of the show, from Visit St. Louis. And Brad said, I predict that 2026 will be the year of the overcomer. Economic forces, geopolitical challenges, and a contentious election cycle will collectively put pressure on the national economy, but our industry will persevere and show modest growth in travel spending. FIFA, A250, Route 66 Centennial, and the like will create some buzz and incremental visitation, but the underlying success factor will be increased efficiencies and improved overall impact by those who are not married to the past. The application of AI and pruning of marketing budgets will lead to improved marketing, and while it won't be a year of record growth, I expect to see modest growth in spending.
Brad is the eternal optimist, and if anyone has overcome, is that gentleman right there, right? And so, um, I don't disagree with it, with anything he said there. I think, obviously, success is not going to be evenly distributed this year. I think there's a lot of folks that are going to continue to struggle, and there's still a lot of unknowns to what's going to happen, as we talked about with the Las Vegas story at the beginning. But um, just the attitude that he has, I think we can all learn from it, right? I
Yeah.
think there's not a person in this industry that saw Brad going from Puerto Rico to St. Louis and didn't think to themselves, man, he's going to go crush it. He's going to turn that place around, right? Because that was definitely a challenging role that he's taken on. But so was Puerto Rico, even
Yeah.
Myrtle Beach when he took over the reins was a challenge, right? So, and he really put us on a map with the team he had there. So, and updating our funding. So, I would never bet against Brad, and I think we could all learn a lot from just the mindset of being positive. And he touched on something really important there, which is don't be burdened by the past, right? Like don't just do things because we've done them before, and don't worry about whether it's political or whatever it is. Don't worry about the past. Let's just focus on the future with hope and optimism and collaborative spirit with the community. And I think that's going to see folks that adopt that mindset are going to be more successful than those that don't.
Yeah, I think you found the hidden nugget in what Brad said, right? Because he said there's two things that are going to make you successful. Number one is increased efficiency, and I think that
Mhm.
goes for the entire industry. If you want to be successful
Mhm.
in 2026, you got to be more efficient.
Yeah.
Number two is don't be married to the past. If the answer to any question in your organization is because we've always done it this way, that
Mhm.
needs to end now, right? And
Yeah.
so I think Brad
Not
has
just in your
called out.
organization, right? In your community, because there's a lot
Yeah.
of what we get burdened with is not ours. It's the community's baggage. We got to cast that aside. Like I
Yep.
really hope to see DMOs being more collaborative with their chambers of commerce and other, economic development and other industries, and being a collective leader, right? It's not about us taking charge or being destination management organizations like a lot of people like to see, because I think that ruffles the wrong feathers. I think it's about us being a part of a solution, which is a radical collaborative with other folks.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Totally agree.
great one, Brad. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Brad. And
Yep.
and then we've got Jeanette Roush, and Jeanette has been an incredible AI authority since it came out. We've had her on the show a couple of times, and she's now with Brand USA doing an incredible job there. She says, I think Disco Browser from Google is another signal that DMOs need to worry less about how content is formatted on their website and focus on the creation of original content with a unique, specific POV.
Yeah, yeah. Content is king. Always will be. Um, in in a world where content does become a commodity, especially generic, basic information, the table stakes information becomes a commodity. How do we stand out? We got to focus on experiences. We got to focus on unique first person perspectives. We got to have opinions, and we got to increase the volume of our content, but not just generic content. We got to increase novel, unique first person content. So
Yep.
I agree with you.
Yeah, no notes for me on that. I think Jeanette makes a great point there. And creativity, we've talked about it already, always wins. And so it's less about how your content's formatted on your site and more about the creativity of the content you create. So I think that's a great point.
Yeah, we got to continue to um, impact emotions, right? We're going to make people feel something. We haven't talked about this in a while on the show. We used to talk about it a lot, but you got to make people feel something, and that will lead to action. And so,
Yeah.
how do we elicit emotions from people? I think content is probably the only way you can do that.
Yep.
Storytelling and such.
Action is not usually the result of a logical explanation. It's the result of an emotion of some sort, right?
Yeah, and often we think, if you look at the neuroscience of it, like the different pieces of the brain, we often have made a decision and then we rationalize it with words, right? So it's you make them feel something, so they think something, so they do something. That's usually the order
Yep.
that it goes.
Absolutely. Her second point, she says algorithmic pricing will move out of the airlines and into our destinations next year, creating a media firestorm when wealthy people discover they're being charged more for the same attraction than someone with less willingness or ability to pay.
Yeah, I mean, maybe. I mean, I think this disparity of what people pay that already exists throughout society, right? And so I don't know how much outrage there will be, but I think for sure there'll be more transparency. So if you are doing things like yielding rates or giving different groups of people different pricing, you're going to have to be upfront about that, about why and how to other people. Yeah, and I would agree. I don't know that it's going to happen as quick as she's suggesting this year, but I think it's something
Yeah,
we've got to be paying attention to.
I don't either. And if it happens, it'll be led by the OTAs.
Probably so.
Yeah. Um, okay, Dan Janes, another friend of the show from Madden Media. He First of all, he says that he believes that trust seeking will be the new driver for decisions, and the symbiotic relationship between AI and human content will drive 2026. Any thoughts on that one?
Okay. Well, I'd like to hear yours first.
Well, I've talked a lot about how I believe trust is actually the currency that we're trying to sell. Attention is what we're trying to achieve, but then we're immediately selling them trust. So I say trust is the product, not the currency. And so I think he's absolutely right that trust should be what we're trying to sell the moment we get someone's attention.
Yeah, I'll give you an example. This week, one of our advocacy folks on our team was doing some research, and they were asking the opinion on a topic and the coverage from one of our local media outlets. And they were asking ChatGPT. And, luckily he's been taught, as we all should, to verify stuff that AI tells. And he started looking, and nothing was lining up. Like what the articles about the subject had said was not what AI had suggested it had. And it, in fact, hallucinated and made some stuff up. And so he pressed AI and said, "Well, why did you say this? Because clearly not." And then AI said, "Oh yeah, my bad. The article was behind a paywall. I couldn't actually read it, so I just guessed what you would want to hear." So I'm like,
Wow.
"That's pretty dangerous, man. Like he could have
Yeah.
really, had he not verified, that could have been a real problem for us, on
Well,
a lot of directions."
and you talk about what drives action, right?
Mm-hmm.
That when he got that result, it made him feel something. And
Mm-hmm.
he's lucky he pressed because
Mm-hmm.
action was on the other side of that in some way, shape, or form,
Yeah,
right?
I mean, he could have easily got called out the media or gone to an elected official with wrong information, and that's just not a good look. So we're glad we caught it, but I don't know about you. I'm finding that whatever has happened with ChatGPT, its latest algorithm, it's not as good at remembering stuff as it was. Like it forgets a lot of context, and
Yeah.
I'm losing trust in it, and I'm
Yep.
finding myself go to Gemini more and more because it does a
Gemini
much better
retains
job.
context.
Yeah, and so I think this next generation, especially the digital generation, the mobile generation, the AI first generation that are going to be consumers. I read something recently, like the average age of the person having children today, they grew up in the iPhone era. Like they didn't have a time without iPhones, right? And
Yeah.
so that makes perfect sense. I think 2007 was when the first iPhone came out. So, you know, 18 years later, um, or 17 years later. So, um, my math's completely off there, but you know what I'm saying. So people, my brain is fine. Are you laughing at me? Thank you.
Yes.
All right. Anyway,
Absolutely.
this generation grown up with the iPhone, and we won't be, we're a decade away from people being AI only, right? And so they're going to have to be more discerning, and trust is going to become. I agree. It's probably the currency that we're all
Yeah.
going to be trading in. for the foreseeable future.
Yeah. And then Dan had three, but I'm only going to read the second one just for the sake of time. He says the global advertising agency community is undergoing a radical shift in the consumer markets with all of the M&A activity. The result will be a pretty
Mhm.
significant consolidation around performance marketing and a new era of independent agencies, but they still need sufficient scale to compete.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of my predictions too, right? I think we're going to see consolidation across the industry on the DMO side and the agency side. So, yeah,
And
I
I'm
agree with this
I'm
one.
seeing it on the agency side for sure. Like I've never gotten so many emails about stuff like this. Like their
Yeah,
M&A is hot right now.
yeah,
Yeah.
cool. So you're going to buy Madden, Miles, and MMGY. Is that what I just heard? Ram
They
Revolt's going
want
to
too
buy all
much
three.
money, Stuart. They want too
Yeah,
much money.
yeah. You should. They should all merge into like the trifecta, like the ultimate agency. But I'm just kidding. There's no way that would
Yeah,
happen.
that sounds a lot like the Sith.
Yeah. Oh no, there's two Sith. There's always two. Only two there are. A master and apprentice.
Mm. Okay,
Mm.
so pop quiz for you in that
No, I'm not
scenario.
answering that question. Absolutely not answering that question. Next.
I love that you saw where I was going
Yeah.
before I got there.
Yep.
Hey, can we do a little sidebar real quick? Just speaking of the Sith,
Sure.
I'm looking behind your
You're
head
you're full of
right there.
little tangents today.
Yeah,
Throw me
yeah,
off my
I'm
game.
I'm enjoying myself today, and I'm
Okay.
seeing that you've got some new additions behind your head here. Can you introduce us to your new friends on the wall back there?
I don't think you could have said that any more condescending if you tried. That's pretty funny. So anyone that knows me knows I have a couple of fixations. You can actually see that if anyone's watching on YouTube, you can see most of them behind me. Other than family, I should probably represent my family behind me. But you got a lot of Star Wars, a lot of Lego, a lot of Nintendo, and some Manchester United stuff. Those are pretty much my hobbies and interests outside of work. But yeah, you can see it more because I'm sitting down today. I'm going to move out the way a little bit. I've started this collection of Lego helmets. They're really cool. I got
It's
two
really
more
cool.
that I already have, and then I'll have the whole set. But they're a lot of fun. I find that Lego is like very cathartic for me because I don't have to think a lot about it, and I can just zone out, maybe listen to a podcast, but just go off the grid, the electronic grid a little bit. So yeah, thanks for noticing. And I am obsessed with collecting stuff. Like when I start a collection, I have to finish it. Like it's like a flaw, genetic flaw, I guess, or maybe it's not genetic, but it's a flaw. And so my son's girlfriend actually bought me the first Lego helmet for Christmas last year in 2024. And so I've spent the rest of 2025 collecting all of them because I needed to have the whole set. So she cost me a lot of money by buying me the first one, but that's okay.
That's
But then
awesome.
she
They're
actually
cool.
completed my set by buying me the final one for Christmas this year. So it was kind of poetic.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's great.
Anyway,
I like it.
we've had so many tangents in this episode, and I'm sure our audience doesn't care about any of this. I probably need to edit all of that out. All right, what's the
No.
next? What's the next one?
Okay, so and we'll wrap with this one. C.A. Clark from Miles, another friend of the show who comes on and talks about AI with us, has a couple of predictions. Number one, he says, I predict most travel marketers will spend 2026 using AI to do the same thing slightly faster. The ones who pull ahead will be doing things they previously weren't capable of in direct collaboration with AI. The gap between those two groups will become visible this year.
Yeah, I agree, but I think there's going to be a very, 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 very small group of people that fit that category of actually evolving how they're using with AI in a meaningful way, right? Because it's tough, man, and it comes back to what we talked about, which is the trust thing. Like I've tried to use Agentic, I'm trying to use the browser. Like I'd say I've dabbled. I'm not certainly haven't committed like someone like a Jeanette or a CA are going to have committed. But I that learning curve or the adoption friction is real, right? Because you got to learn and think a little different, but it's not perfect yet. And whereas it's easy to correct the imperfection of an LLM when I'm say writing an email or writing a report, if it's agentic and you're sending it off on a 30-minute quest or whatever, um, and it makes an assumption that's wrong at the beginning, it costs me more time right now, right? I haven't found the benefit there in terms of me, and I don't have the spare time to invest in it to get good, right? And if early adopters like us are not finding it, then I don't see that, we're probably on the end of the bell curve. I don't see the majority adopting this stuff yet because it's just not quite ready.
Yeah, I agree with you. As I read CA's message, he says that there people will spend 2026 using AI to do the same thing slightly faster. I think what's
That's
going to
probably true.
happen, yeah, I think what's going to happen is just there's this slow distance being created between an AI enabled marketer and a non-AI enabled marketer. And
Hmm.
the non AI enabled marketers don't realize it, but they are frogs in boiling water. Because even though the distance between them is slow moving, it is getting greater and greater. And at some point, it's actually going to hit the point of no return, where it's impossible as a non AI enabled marketer to truly have the impact in your role comparative to the AI enabled marketers in other organizations. I feel like if you're not able to, for example, update a web page using a replit or a Claude code or something like that at this point, you're behind. If you're unable to, you know,
Whoa, whoa, whoa.
take
Say that again, because I don't know that I agree. Say what you just said
okay,
again.
so let me give you an example. The website in the destination marketing space right now there's gatekeepers because there's a few different website companies who are
CMSs, yeah.
yeah CMSs, right? And what's happening now, so you as a marketer are having to go through that CMS organization or you're updating the site on your own. There's going to be a disintermediation at some point where you can make updates using Replit or Claude Code or something like that, and you don't need the organization on the other end. And we need to be learning how to do those simple updates now. I mean, I've been personally, I've never understood code. I've never been a web developer and
Hmm.
I am making updates to landing pages and websites through Replit by describing what I want to do. And those types of activities that have historically, there's been a knowledge um, barrier for people. The tactical knowledge is going to continue to become commoditized.
So I'm gonna do another movie reference because I like doing that to you recently. But Jurassic Park, Jeff
I've
Goldblum's
seen it.
character says, oh, you have seen that one?
I have
Because
seen
you
it.
haven't seen half of the ones I mentioned. But Jeff Goldblum's character, I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but he said, scientists were so focused on whether they could do something, they never stopped to think about whether they should, right?
Hmm.
And something like website, right? You made a pretty declarative statement, which you said the people that aren't doing this stuff are already behind. I would, I would, I would, I would suggest that most, like 90% plus of DMOs aren't using that technology to update their website yet, right? And I don't think they're necessarily behind, because I think just because you can update, say, content on a website as the owner of your agency, that doesn't mean you should be, right? You have people
Sure.
that should do it. Now, maybe they should be, but maybe for right now, because they do know code and they can go into the CMS, it's just as quick for them to update content that way than it would be through Replit. So I think there's technology that's emerging, like these tools you mentioned, that can give access to functionality that certain people didn't have. But that doesn't necessarily mean you're necessarily, as an organization, in a better position because of it.
Yeah, I think that's fair. What I'm not suggesting is that every destination marketer needs to be making their own updates through Replit about with their destination website.
Right.
What I'm suggesting is that every marketer needs to at least understand how to leverage a tool like that to do it. So I'm actually not updating the Brand Revolt website using Replit. That's not something I do.
Thank the Lord.
Right? And that's the reason it's still up and working. But
Yeah.
I am on personal projects leveraging Replit and learning how to use it and seeing the impact of updating landing pages. And I guess that's what I'm getting at is marketers. I'm not talking to, although I think organizations are, it's going to be the same thing for organizations. But right now, you're behind if you're not practicing with these tools and learning how to do stuff you couldn't do before because the gap will get unclosable at some point.
Yeah. That's the other thing I don't know that I agree with. So I do agree that you should be practicing, right? You should sign up for some kind of some program to learn about AI beyond just writing emails and reports, right? You should be constantly booking time on your calendar, whether that be daily, weekly, monthly, whatever, but you should be educating yourself on the latest capabilities, because there are certainly capabilities that will exist that will improve your life that you don't know about today, right? And so that's no question. What I don't necessarily agree with is that the people doing it now are going to hit escape velocity to the point where they can't be caught. Because I think I would argue if I'd sat on the sidelines up until today, right? We've had ChatGPT out since for like 3 years now, right? If
Yeah.
if I'd sat on the sidelines for that 3 years and never touched it once, I could come in today and within a week could be pretty much on par with you and me in how I use ChatGPT, right?
It's it's a theory. Like I don't know, because here's the problem with the assumption that you just made is you and I, in our usage of ChatGPT and Gemini and Replit and other products over the course of the last 3 years, have learned little bits and pieces here and there that have
Yeah.
culminated in the knowledge we have today. And so the idea that you could come in, yes, you might be able to do a lot of the same things with ChatGPT if you came in today that we've been doing for the last 3 years. But I don't think I'm ready to say that you could be caught up with somebody who's been learning all those little bits and pieces and building on it as they've gone along.
But I think the difference would be negligible in terms of the optics. And I'm not saying like you come in and self-teach yourself in a week. I'm saying you could get a condensed education on best practices and stuff like that. Like you'd have to put in some effort, but I think you can catch up. So I don't necessarily think people aren't going to be able to catch you, but I do agree with there is going to be a gap that is slowly getting bigger, but that speed at which it gets bigger is going to accelerate, right? And so I do think we should be absolutely investing in learning this stuff, but I'm really struggling. I really want CA to come on this show and talk a little
Yeah.
bit about this because uh, there's this going to be this gap, and we've talked about it already between the capabilities that exist, the technology that and the tools that exist, and adoption. There's always going to be a gap between that, right? And even now, the software you use, like let's even just say ChatGPT, you and I are using it on a daily basis, but we're probably not using 100% of its capabilities, right? There's stuff probably functionality in there that we don't know or we haven't learned or we
Yeah.
we don't trust, right? Like shopping is probably a trusting. And so you multiply that by every piece of software that's been built on top of these LLMs and every agentic tool that's out there. There's thousands of things out there that could make our day a little bit better, but we're not adopting them for whatever reason. And so I definitely want to talk about what this gap is and how do we close it between the capabilities in the adoption, right? There's a big
Yeah.
gap there. And the faster we can close that gap, the better for everyone in this industry.
Well, let's talk to CA about that.
We'll have him on. I'm sure he'd
Let's
love
do
to
it.
talk about that. That'd be a good episode. Although we're booked out, man, through like March at this point. It's crazy. Like with the show is getting super popular. People want to be a part of it, and it's really been fun.
Yeah, I mean, you had to turn down Joe Rogan the other day, right?
No, it was Matt Damon. I'd asked
Ah,
him to come on the show.
yeah, that's right.
That joke might not make sense because I think the episode we talked about, I don't remember which episode it was. It might come out after this one. We got to get back into recording
Which we've been
sequentially
known to
because,
do. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Cool. That's all of them? I know there was a couple
Yeah.
more, but we're probably out of time. So,
That's what we got time for.
yeah, those were great, man. Hopefully those were helpful to you. And, you know, it's really interesting when you ask a open-ended question like, "What are your predictions for this year?" and you don't give anyone parameters, like the variety of things that people are thinking about, right? And I think we as humans, like the things we're thinking about is typically where our energy goes, right? We talk about our focus determines our reality all the time on this show, and so, or at least I do, because I like to quote Star Wars. But um, this is where people are focused this year. Like this is what they're thinking about, and so. Those are the things you should probably be thinking about too, because these are some of the smartest minds in the industry that we
Yeah.
just got some lessons from. So, yeah, man, it's great.
Yeah.
Adam, any final thoughts from you, sir?
Uh, well, I just want to speak to our Desties. briefly, and we've done 3 episodes now on planning for 2026. Hopefully, that conveys to everybody how important both you, Stuart, and I feel like this year is for everybody that listens to the show. I think this is going to be a really important year for everybody in their career, for everybody's organizations. I think change will probably continue, and that's why planning is so important, so that you can be prepared, whether it be to stay the course or to shift. But the one thing that I can guarantee you will result in failure is not having a plan at all. And so I would really love to see everybody put some serious thought into planning for 2026 and make sure that you're better this year than last year, that you're not doing anything this year because you did it last year. And I think if you follow some of these predictions we've made on planning for 2026, I think you're going to have the best chance at success this year. And I think it's going to be a great year.
I do too. I'm optimistic about the year. You've seen enough presentations from me to recognize what I'm about to say, but a lot of times when I'm trying to sell a point or motivate the team, I have a sort of two-step framework that I encourage our team and our extended team through our agencies to live by. And one of those is to be obsessed with the people we serve, right? You always should think about them first, not yourself. Like, how does this impact them? Even if it's going to be difficult for me, even though I don't know how to do it, I can figure it out. But I got to serve whoever it is I'm serving, and that changes, right? For us as DMOs, it's our stakeholders, our businesses in the hospitality industry, it's our visitors, it's our elected officials, it's our residents, right? So we've always got to be obsessed with whoever we're serving. But the other one, and where this ties to this, is we got to challenge the status quo, right? We've always got to challenge that status quo. This is a pivotal year. I think there's so many things are changing in society, and DMOs have been fragile. We've seen that in the past, whether when Visit Florida or others get defunded. Um, and I think our role is evolving so rapidly because of this shift in consumer behavior and consumption, that this is a pivotal year that we all will change the course of where DMOs are 10, 20, 30, 40 years from now. And so now's the time that everyone has to challenge the status quo. Everyone has to look at their daily calendar and say, am I focused on the things that are actually making a difference, that are core to my mission? And if I'm not, how do I eliminate them? How do I get these things off my plate that are distracting me from the core value that we can provide to our community, to our business community and our residents? And so hopefully this episode will inspire some folks to think about that, because if we don't, if we're in the same position next year where we're still using AI to send emails and we're still doing the same campaigns and the world around us has changed fundamentally, which it will have 12 months from now, we're going to be so irrelevant that you're not going to have anyone defend why you exist anymore. And so we've got to challenge that status quo. Hopefully these episodes and this show will prepare you to do that. So great. Hi, Adam. If they want to find you, where can they do that?
Adam at thebrandrevolt.com. Find me on LinkedIn or, of course, on Tourism IQ.
You got a kind of a smug grin on your face today, Adam. I don't know why you're so humid. You need to knock it off.
I'm enjoying. You know what? The new background you've added has made it much more pleasant, just
Well,
to look at you.
I am. I don't know if that's true. I'm sitting down today, and I did last episode too. I'm going to start standing up again. Like I don't like sitting down. It's not good for you. So you probably my big broad body will probably be covering all that stuff up next episode. But maybe you just boosted our YouTube views. Most 99% of people listening to this show, they're not watching it. So maybe you just boosted our YouTube views. Who knows? But
That's the goal.
regardless of how you're consuming this show, whether it's audio or video, please like, subscribe, leave comments, reach out to us, tell us what you're thinking and where we're wrong. Like, we love to be challenged. We love a good debate on this show. And so we'd love to invite you to come join us and tell us your thesis or tell us why Adam's wrong. And so, Adam, if they want to reach out and tell you how wrong you are, how can they do that?
We actually already hit that, but I'm always down to tell you again. Adam at
Okay.
thebrandrevolt.com,
Uh,
or you can find me on Tourism IQ.
we really want them to find you this week.
It's good. Come tell me how
Okay.
wrong I am.
All right. They can find me, Stuart.Butler, at visitmotorbeach.com or on LinkedIn. Guys, thank you for listening. You Desties are why we do this show. And so thank you so much from the bottom of our heart. Until next time, this has been Destination Discourse.
Thanks, everybody.